A Conversation with John Conenna is sponsored in part by Venus Travel Incorporated in Chicago, the agency that has served the Chicagoland area for over 55 years, which is still owned and operated since 1968 by the Conenna family. Again, Venus Travel, the premier agency for over 55 years, is a proud sponsor of A Conversation with John Conenna. And now, on to our episode. Good evening and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Conenna. Today, we are honored to have on the former Chicago Blackhawk here who played during the era that I was watching Blackhawk hockey extensively, the former Buffalo Sabre, coach for many teams at the professional level, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and a lot of the minor league affiliates, and even in the old IHL and AHL. And proud to tell you that Mr. Steve Ludzik is the president of his foundation, the Steve Ludzik Foundation. We are honored to have on today, number 29, Steve Ludzik. Steve, what is going on, young man? And great to see you on here today, sir.
John, thank you for having me, and hello to everybody out there. It's very nice. I saw your interview with Tom Lysiak's wife, and I thought it was great, and it reaches a lot of people and brings back good memories of old days.
Oh,
when that stadium, the old stadium, was unbelievable to walk up those flights of stairs and get on the ice. And I always say there was a lot better hockey players than Steve Ludzik, but nobody was more proud to wear that sweater than me. It was a thrill for me every time I put it on. I don't care where I was playing.
I can imagine. We're going to get to that point because I'll tell you, for me, I want to ask you that question. I played hockey on the amateur level, not at the level of you or a Lysiak. I played up and through college. And of course, the dream was always, like you said, to come up those steps in the old stadium. It just never happened for me after college. Question for you. Do you remember those early days coming out of Etobicoke? When did you start skating? When did you, become this guy where you thought, I like this, I want to do this?
Well, I'm going to tell you, that's a good question, John. Everybody assumes I'm from Niagara Falls, but I just came here to play junior hockey, and in my career has been a battle all the time. I led the city of Toronto in scoring as a young boy from 10 to 15. And when I was 16, I was playing provincial junior A in Markham. And I think I had 30 goals in 30 games. That was pretty good numbers back then for a 15-year-old playing with 20-year-olds. But I got Crohn's disease, and I was laid up for 4 or 5 months. Couldn't play, and nobody thought I would play hockey again. Everybody gambled, didn't bet. Jimmy the Greek in his wisest hour would not have bet on me.
Okay.
And I came out. I took a summer and I worked out. I got in fantastic shape, and I was drafted by the Niagara Falls Flyers. And when I won, I thought. I knew I was going to be a hockey player. My dad was my guy, my pusher, my prodder, my guy that told me how he saw the game. And when I was 10 years old, I got the greatest trophy, the beautiful trophy in the mail, and it said to Steven Ludzik, leading scorer, 59 goals, 10 assists. So obviously my playmaking skills were not on display at 10 years old. But the minute I saw that trophy, I knew I was going to play in the NHL. And before my dad died, he died very young at 50 years of age. I went to him and asked him a question that I thought I already knew. I said, Dad, did you send that trophy to me when I was 10? And he goes, yeah, I did. I thought you needed a little pat and then a kick in the rear end. And that was typical him. And he knew how to stoke the fire, so to speak. And I think I did the same thing as a coach.
And I got to tell you, what a button for your father to push, because who knows you better than your parents?
Nobody. Nobody.
Exactly.
And I always say that to John, the guys that say, hey, your mom and your dad will not steer you wrong. They want the best for you. They might make a couple of mistakes along the way. That's life.
Right.
But I was lucky. I had a very forceful father. Very forceful. I didn't dare fool around with cigarettes or booze. Or I remember he caught me drinking a beer at a team party when I was 16, and he hit the roof. And he was a heavy drinker himself. He said, "Don't do as I do. Do as I say."
Right, exactly. Steve, I have to tell you, because I did look up this when you played in this Quebec International Pee Wee Hockey League and everything else, the junior and everything. And of course, then you're drafted very high in those days by the Blackhawks in that 1980 entry draft, you know.
Well, I came to Niagara Falls, and I should have been probably the top 3 or 4 picks in that draft to go junior. And the first day of training camp, I ran into a guy that would be with me for a long time, Steve Larmer.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a lot of fun together, him and I. We were together for over 10 years, 3 in junior, 7 in pro.
Wow.
I'm going to see him next weekend at a place, and just the nicest guy. And of course, you know all about the hockey cards, the mistake cards that Larmer and we were waiting for our cards.
Oh, that online.
Yeah, and they got his name on my face, and my face with his name. But I tell Larmer, I said, you know what? I'm really happy because according to the back of my car, I won the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and they padded your stats pretty well, right? Oh, God, Steve. Oh,
yeah. But you know what? I was drafted as a scorer. You know, I'm sitting here looking at another junior. He's sitting at my kitchen, Dave Schultz. And people that I know, he was a big scorer in junior.
yes, yes.
And he's a good friend of mine. And any which way, he's sitting having a coffee at my table. But they make you do your job. And when they'd say to me, yeah, you're going to be a checker in this organization, that's the way it's going to be. And if you don't do your job, they're going to go find somebody else to do it. And they're lucky, and I was able to do my job there.
Well, I got to tell you, okay, I mean, you come to the Blackhawks in 81, 82. That's your first round with the Blackhawks in that 81, 82. Was Magnuson at that time the coach when you came up?
Maggie was he was a coach, but he was in not a very secure spot. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
And it was tough for him because he played the year before with a lot of these guys. And I thought they did not play it the way they should have for Maggie. Maggie was a heart and soul guy. He was a tough guy.
Sure.
Yeah, he was durable. And I guess they say you never want to fight. I think I seen him win a couple.
Oh, yeah.
The way. But
I saw him beat up Badney pretty well. I got a videotape.
Yeah, Phil. I saw that same thing too. And it was, you know what? I got to tell you a story that some people might like and some people might not, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I was 5 years old. My dad took me to the first game I ever watched, and it was Chicago Blackhawks, if you can believe it, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And my dad got me behind the curtain somehow. You can't do that. I don't know how he did it, but he said, go get Bobby Hull's autograph. And it's please and thank you, Mr. Hull. I went down and Bobby was standing there and he signed my paper.
Wow.
And I looked up at him. I could still see the beautiful sweater, the white and the red, the black, and there's a piece of green.
Sure.
Yeah. And that golden smile. And I said, that's what a hockey player looks like. And I want to be that guy. And I called Bobby. Fortunately, I talked to him 2 weeks before he passed. He used to do a lot of stuff for my foundation down here. And I was just, he was just like, you know, I did the best I could. And that's the way he wanted to be remembered. But I still haven't found out, to be honest with you, John. I don't know how he died. I don't know how he passed away.
You know what? A lot of people said that he had maybe a lot of underlying things. You know, again, Well, we remember Bobby Hall, of course, as this
Yeah.
unbelievable, guy. But I think at the end, he kind of let himself go to the point where, it is what it is. But
But he was in a wheelchair the last he's in a
yeah,
wheelchair the last number of years.
sure. Okay,
Yeah.
so I got to tell you, Steve, when you came up, when you talk about coming up those steps, and we're a year apart. I was born in 1960. When I was going into the old building, and out came Espo, and you had the Lysiaks, the Ruskowskis, the Prestons that first year yourself. You had this edge to you, which the Chicago Blackhawks needed. So you're telling me now, you go from this scorer to this guy goes, hey, you're gonna go in the corners, you're gonna meet Steve Ludzik, correct?
Well, yeah, but you know what happens is you do the job they tell you to do.
Right.
And I had to learn how to play left wing. I never played. I was a centerman. So, and then you just read out about 4 or 5 top end centermen. Ruskowski was a captain. Lysiak, Savard was drafted in the first round.
The year
Penny
before.
There was a whole Billy Gardner. There was about 5 or 6 guys that could play in any team in the league. And so I had to learn how to play left wing just to get my foot in the door.
Exactly. Yeah. You had to learn that whole position over again.
Yeah, exactly, John.
And then you're going through a situation where, like we said, you came in with Magnus, and then you have Orville Tessier.
Yeah, that was my break, and that's the way it works in hockey, John. The coach that comes from, we won the Calder Cup the year before with Orville. Okay. And a lot of guys didn't like Orville because he was a yeller and a screamer. And too bad. We're paid a good buck to play hockey and throw it on the line. And you know what? If you don't want to play, hand in your gear.
Exactly.
And we didn't have many guys. I can't think of anybody like that in Chicago. But it was quite an experience. And going up those steps, those were dangerous coming down.
I heard some wild stories.
Every guy slipping down those. I can't remember, John, how many it was, 15 or 14 or
14 steps.
That was a long way down. That was a long way. I needed the bat rope to get myself up once in a while.
But Stephen, I got to ask you, as the athlete who played in that building, when you guys were coming out and that organ's going off with that song, is it goosebumps every time coming up?
Every time. You know what? The minute I didn't have that, it's time for Steve Ludzik to go.
Yeah, gotcha.
I had, it was never, I love playing. I love playing. And unfortunately, when you retire, most of the time you don't find that same release as when you play hockey.
Right.
And I always told my wife to tap me on the shoulder when it was time for me to, she's been with me since we were kids, 17, 16. And I broke my sternum, I broke my foot, I broke my wrist, and this and that. And she said, hey, remember that tap? I'm giving it to you now. It's time to go. Okay. And it was. It was.
But you're right. I mean, you say it perfectly. I mean, once the accolades of even hearing that crowd or that organ, like you said, I'm sure. And listen, I want you to know this coming from me, a guy who's followed hockey my whole life. You had a great coaching career too, at whatever level you coached at. If it was in the NHL with Tampa, the IHL, the AHL, the minor leagues, you gave this team that Steve Ludzik recognition of what you learned as a player growing up to these teams.
Yeah, I really enjoyed coaching, and matter of fact, I knew I was getting sick at that time, and I knew I was on a roulette wheel, and I was running around, and I knew I was in trouble. I didn't get, Orville Tessier, I learned a lot from a lot of coaches. Roger Nielsen, I learned you don't have to be a bad guy to be a good coach. Roger Nielsen was one of the most humane people I ever met in my life, and very knowledgeable. Orville Tessier, what I learned, I loved Orville. Orville may be my best relationship I ever had with a coach. He was bombastic. He was bald. He was sweaty. He was always yelling. He was always screaming. And I loved him.
Yeah. Because
he could give you shit on a Friday night. And then Saturday morning, he go, hey, you want a coffee? That's
Wow.
what I thought was impressive. And nobody saw that. Larmer and I would see it. There's a story for you inside. Steve Larmer never trained a day in his life.
Natural.
And
Natural.
yeah, just natural. And he come to training camp after we won the Calder Cup in the year that we made it, and happened to be walking down in the Chicago Blackhawk dressing room. And Randy Lacey, our trainer, was getting orders from Bob Pulford. He goes to the minors. He's going, stay, go. He goes. And he had Larmer's bag set to go to Springfield. And Orville was walking in at that time. And he says, what are you doing? He goes, well, Larmer's been the worst player on the ice in training camp. And Orville said, he goes, I'm going to give him a chance to play with Dennis Savard, last chance. I think he comes late in the play. He used to do that. He was my winger in junior.
Right.
And the rest is history.
Right.
The
Exactly.
And if Orville Teste doesn't, and that's the first time Larmer's like, I never heard of what carte blanche mean. What the hell is carte blanche? And he's got total say. And he did have total say on who made the team. But I always thought Paulie called a lot of the shots behind the scenes. I really did. I really thought that. And I felt sorry for Orville when he got fired, because I don't think, you know what's funny, John? They made a big to-do about him saying we need heart transplants. And a lot of people watching this remember that he called us out. He had, if you want facts, he used that for months. Exactly. Or he said that, and the reason it made big news is because we were playing Hockey Night Canada and for the Stanley Cup.
Right.
And he never meant, and then I felt bad because he kind of backtracked, and I said, you know what? I'd rather he just stayed his old curmudgeon self.
Sure.
And yeah,
Steve,
you know what? And
and not to interrupt you, but you're right. I mean, you played for this man. This was not going to be the first time he was going to approach a team like that. I remember the comment. I guess there's two lakes here. Jump in either one of them. You need a heart transplant. But you know what? He took the fall, I think, because again, like you said, Pulford was probably, doing the puppet thing from up there,
Yeah.
And of course,
well, Orville was a bombastic, is the best word I can say, a bombastic type guy. He was loud, but you look at his record, wherever he went, he did very well.
Very well.
For a short period of time.
Sure.
Kind of like the Billy Martin of baseball, of hockey. He was a lightning rod for a little bit of trouble. And you know what? Funny, these people all think they know. They claim that he had when we were in Chicago, he had Catholics versus the Protestants hockey game in practice. Now we all knew this was baloney. That never happened. But he makes stuff up like that. Say we had the Protestants versus the Catholics today. And Murray Bannerman said, well, that's pretty interesting. I'm Jewish. Where the hell do I play?
I got to tell you something, and we're going to get back to Steve Ludzik here today. But, I'll never forget this. My idol growing up was, of course, number 35, Tony Esposito. And I know you played with him for a few seasons. But I have to tell you, Tony and Orville at the end got into it. But I have to tell you, at the end, Tony was not the same goaltender because of age. And, of course, the game started to get faster on Tony. And, I really think that Orville took a lot of the blame of Tony's eruptions there at the end because Orville saw it as a coach. You are not number 35 that had 15 shutouts back in 1969, correct?
Yeah. Well, you know what I thought was so funny? Paul Coffey's a great friend of mine. And Gretzky had a thing that he hated playing against me more than anybody else. And I take that as a compliment.
You were antagonizing him all the time.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, exactly. And I like that. I like that fact. But with so much control, Gretzky, how smart he was. He would go when he got to Chicago and had morning skate before the game. I hope they don't put Tony Esposito. I can't score on Tony Esposito. Oh, he's the hardest goalie for me to score. And I'm sitting there going, I remember him filling the net, not knocking Tony, but he didn't have that much trouble. And Koff said, he played different media guys right like a fiddle. Yeah. And they used Tony against him. And I think they beat us 10 or 11-1. And Murray Bannerman, God, I love him. He's a great guy. He goes, you guys go play hockey. Nobody gets 10 goals on me. You're right. They got 11.
I know him.
And I love Muzz. He was a great guy. And there's nothing you do. The Oilers were not heart transplants, this crap, that crap. he was just the Edmonton Oilers. Nobody was going to beat that team, John. We didn't have to
No way.
be blowing ourselves apart by saying, "Oh, a heart transplant stuff." They were just that much
They
better.
were, I mean,
They were better than anybody.
yeah,
Nobody
they were
would beat
4
that.
lines deep. They were 4
Four
lines.
lines deep.
Yeah.
4 lines deep. And their fourth line guy was as tough as anything. I can't remember his name, but Koff said he's fourth line guy. He was as strong as a Shetland pony.
Yeah, I mean, well, they had guys like McTavish and Kruzhelnyski that were just like,
Yeah.
thoroughbreds, right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
I want to ask you.
we stretched him to, I think, 6 games a couple years later.
Yes, yes.
And that's when Messier to me showed that he was a great leader because he played.
Oh
Great.
yeah,
He could elevate his game
incredible,
unbelievably.
incredible.
And
Steve, I want to kind of just switch gears a little bit. I really want to get this book that I didn't know was on the market. Been there, done that. I think with you and Thomas, I would like to get it. It came out in 2000. There it is. I would like you to hold that up for our audience because I have it. I saw it and I wanted to get it. I just ordered it. That is a great beer. Been there, done that. Came out in 2010. Steve Ludzik and a great forward by Don Cherry in there. So I love the book and want to get.
You're gonna love it. It really is. I was very proud of this book. It was the bestseller in Canada.
Yes.
And
Been there, done that.
yeah, and people like I've had hockey players like Kirk Fraser, Glenn Cochran, Bobby Mano say, hey, Ludzik, that's the best. Because it tells inside story, but it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. Like I just don't go for that crap hole.
Well, I'm definitely going to get a copy of that and send it to you because you got to sign it to me. But I have to ask.
I'll tell you what. I'll send out this copy right here to you.
You got it. I would love it,
Yeah,
Steve.
I'll send it out, and you make sure when you read it, if you don't think it's any good, say it.
I will.
It's the best part. If it's the funniest book you ever read, tell me too.
I want to ask you. Doing the research on you because I was looking so much forward to this interview, Steve. You had mentioned that back when you were playing for the Chicago Blackhawks, you were pretty much already diagnosed with this liver problem, correct?
Absolutely. And you know what? I crashed when I was 30. I almost died.
Right.
And my doctor said, I'd like to see his liver. There's no way this could have crept up on as quick. Like, and they check your enzymes, your blood work.
Mm-hmm. And
we finally got the records from the medical people. And it was scary to look from 1981 to 88. The enzymes were going up, up. And so much higher that it said emergency, patient must see doctor. I never thought anything of it. And you know what? I played on with it, and eventually I had a liver transplant about 2 years ago.
Yes, and by the way, congratulations. I'm so happy because I had been following you on this, and I saw that you did receive the transplant.
Yeah, and it was, you know what? It was because my wife, it was at the roughest spot where it was COVID, and my nurse went down with COVID. And then basically my wife had to be my nurse for all that time because nobody really wanted to, whatever. And I thank her for that. And it was a rough go. It was infections and this and that. And it was very tough, very tough. But I gradually feel better right now. And talking to you about doing this stuff, it makes me feel even better.
Oh, I'll tell you, Stephen, I mean this. I mean, everything you've done from the day your dad gave you that trophy, I don't know what lit the fuse. You have always persevered and done well, and you are a fighter. And by the way, and speaking of, it's Mary, correct? Your wife?
Marianne, yeah.
Yeah, Marianne. Just this morning, I could see the compassion in this woman, how she was trying to help both of us to get on this Zoom this morning.
But I say I married young, but I married smart.
You married smart for sure.
And what they say is with a hockey player, first thing that goes is not your shot, your skating, or your back checking. It's your wife.
It's your wife.
A lot of guys, it's your wife that goes first.
Exactly. Steve, I got to ask.
I'm lucky we've been married 40 years. So
congratulations. I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why you you come out publicly in 2012 to tell everyone that you had this Parkinson's,
Yeah.
but you were diagnosed in 2000. Was that, you were on that, you were
Score.
doing, of course, the television work on the Score television network. Was there a reason why you waited, Steve, or is that too personal of a question to ask?
No. You know what? It's really funny. My two favorite athletes, I really admired Walter Payton, and he had the same disease that I had, biliary sclerosing cholangitis. It's a mouthful for a deadly disease. My other favorite athlete was Muhammad Ali. And I love Walter Payton because he instead of running when he was sick, he said, "Come look at me. Look at me. I'm fighting the best I can." Muhammad Ali wasn't ashamed or anything of his shaking, and I think I do a lot. Like today, I've got at least two meetings with people that have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and they think it's a dead end. And I'm here to say it's not dead end. And we opened up the Steve Ludzik Parkinson's facility in St. Catharines, and it's rated #1 in the world, if you can believe that.
I believe it.
A guy here with about, I think I got my grade 10. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, very proud of that. And I'm lucky because I stayed in a small, like Niagara Falls. I stayed and I know everybody, and it's quite refreshing for me.
I got to ask you, when did the Steve Ludzik Foundation start? And
well, it started when I went to get diagnosed, and I didn't answer your question, John. And I'm going to tell you what, it's a great question. This is one of the better interviews I've had.
Thank you.
I had Parkinson's. I kept quiet for a long time. The problem with my TV show is very popular. It was the #1 rated show in Canada, sports show.
Sure.
And one sports writer here in Niagara Falls didn't mean to be mean. He just said, "Ludzik's my favorite guy on TV. He's funny. He's this and that. But I'm worried that he's drinking alcohol during the show, because by the end of the show, he's slurring his words." Well, that's one of the side effects of Parkinson's disease, John.
Right.
You slur your words if you're not careful. And I woke up that morning and I said, you know what? I'm tired of running. And I learned my lesson it was kind of like a bully. And I wrote a letter to Parkinson's disease, Steve Ludzik to Parkinson's disease. And I won't bore you with the details, but I was like, "Hey, Parkinson's, you knocked on the wrong door. You tapped the wrong guy in the shoulder. You called the wrong guy outside, because now you got the lion, not the lamb. And I'm coming to hunt you down." That's why I've looked at life always like that. Be on the offense. I know my offensive game wasn't great in national hockey. I always went to the attack, like forecheck and get in there. And, I wasn't a patient guy. I'm still not. But what happened when I went to the doctor, when they diagnosed me, the doctor said, "Young man, you got Parkinson's." I was 40. I'm 62 now. And the doctor said, "You got Parkinson's disease." Walked out, never come back in the office. I waited for half an hour. The guy never showed up. I said, "We got to do something about this." So I built the Steve Ludzik Parkinson's Foundation in St. Catharines.
And what year was that, Steve, again? What year was that, sir?
That'd be 10 years ago.
10 years.
That'd be 10 years ago. And I do like a Dean Martin roast. I had people say, "Ludzik, you're never going to raise." For me, it's raised over $1.5 million in 10 years. I took a break this year because I'm just too tired.
I get it.
I'm just too tired. And my buddies from Toronto came down and said, "Ludzik, we're going to talk to you the only way you're going to learn." What, are you crazy? You got to get your health back before you help anybody else. And they're right. They're right, John.
Unbelievable. I have to tell you, you have been recognized for your charity work with the Materials Service Decoration Civil Division.
Yeah, the Governor General's Award.
Yeah, that was, for me to see that was incredible. And before I let you go here today, this thing about the rink where they have you in this the box, they named it after you.
The press box.
Yeah, the press box.
Hey, you know what? That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, they put a big mural of me up there. And they did the Niagara Falls, when I was going through the operation, they put red and white Polish colors on the falls, illuminated the fall. And then all the people came thousands of people come down and honk their horns, give Steve Ludzik when I was going on a knife next morning, 14-hour operation.
Right.
And I don't think I'm ever going to forget that. I know I'm not going to. And I want to thank the people. I just want to thank the people. Thanks for sticking in there.
You listen.
Very, very tough to say, but I should have said it a lot. I've said it, and that's good. But I love the people of Chicago.
Oh, and listen, everywhere I go, and because that was my era, we still talk about all you guys. Yeah, that was the turn in Chicago of what, we started to see that turn, and with guys like you, like I says, and Denny and Tommy Lysiak and Crossman and Marsh, we started to see it in Billy Gardner,
Well, I can tell you know what, John, I can tell you're a great fan because I listen to your voice and you can hear passion coming out.
Thank you.
When you're speaking.
Thank you.
I love that. If you don't have passion, there's nothing you can do. If you got ideas and dreams, they got to have landing gear, not just wings to take off. You got to land them. Hey, listen, before I go, I got to put this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here you go. Oldteammates.com. I just got Dave Schultz popping his head in here. He's looking great too. He looks like he'd take on about 6 guys right now.
Is Dave Schultz there right now?
He's right here. If you want to say hi to him, just a hi. He doesn't. He wants to. There he is, right here, my buddy.
Bring him in. Dave, how are you? Dave, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm great.
And listen, I would love to do a podcast with you eventually too. I would love to do one with you. I want to ask you, who was tougher, you or Selesky?
God, that's a bad question.
The worst question I've ever got.
I just bragged about Selesky was the welterweight compared to him.
Listen, I'll never.
Anyway, just in a year from now, Hammered by Life, a book by Dave the Hammer Schultz is coming out.
It's going to be a bestseller.
Well, Dave, if you can leave your information with Steve, I would love to do a podcast with you. And I got to tell you, never forget a fight that you had that won a game. You won many. It was when you really wailed on Mr. Dale Rolfe.
Oh my God!
In Game 7,
he wasn't thinking.
Yeah, I don't know where he was thinking.
I can't believe nobody from the Rangers came to help Dale.
I would have been at the concession stand.
Hey, listen, John. Before you go,
nice seeing you, David.
Oldteammates.com. There you go. That's that. I know it's kind of haphazard, but it's going to be a venture, and Schultze's involvement, where you can go and contact any player you played with in minor hockey as a kid. Like what happened to that goalie in Pee Wee? What happened to that guy you played college with? It's an unbelievable thing. So if you want information, call me.
I will. Listen, I want to leave you with this, Steve, and I am glad Dave's there to hear this. By the way, in the background is Dave Schultz, everyone who will be watching this. Steve, this is what I want to say about you, and this is coming from the mayor of Niagara Falls, James Diodati. Ludzik didn't just move to Niagara Falls. He became an integral part of our community. We need to recognize mentors and heroes in Niagara Falls. His bravery and fortitude are unrivaled. Diatoli told the Niagara Independent. Steve Ludzik, you keep doing what you're doing because you are admired, honored, and loved. And Mr. Schultz, thank God I'm not there because I don't want to deal with you today.
That's a bad question, John.
What were you, Toronto fan?
No. I'm an old Phil Russell fan.
Chicago, right.
I'm an old Phil Russell fan.
Oh. Yes, he's a piece of work too. I liked him.
Yeah.
You know who I liked the best and I got to be good friends with was Keith Magnus.
Oh, yeah.
He wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't, whatever. We were at some banquet during our playing days, but I got to know him after our careers were over, and he was a wonderful man.
Wonderful man. Well,
hey, John, keep up your good work. This is an excellent show you got, and the players love it.
Both Steve, Dave Schultz, thank you, and let's try to do a part 2, Steve Ludzik, and let's try to do a part 1 with Mr. Schultz for sure.
Yeah, I got all his information here. You give him a call.
You got it.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, everyone, for coming on, and thank you, Steve Ludzik, for this great day.
Thanks.